everyone, my name is Luna and I'm here to break down everything that happened in episode 4 of campaign 4 of Critical Role, Stone-Faced. This week was of course the Halloween special, and it was fun to see them embrace the dark and gothy style, except for Alex of course, because what could be more terrifying than this?
Don't let pastel Alex haunt you in your dreams. He can't hurt you in real life.
Where's your hand? Do you want to go fishing?
And to keep the Halloween vibes going, we kick off with a very dark scene as Belair approaches the tavern known as Potter's Field with a plainly wrapped package. Heading inside, he bumps into the demons that we met last week, Rulius and Calastro, and they are snacking on the spirit or something of a young man slumped over them, a sight that does not seem to perturb Belair, and in fact he commissions a custom-made suit from them. Belair heads into a back room with someone called Orbrus Drime, a smuggler, who he hands over the package to. When Orbrus opens the package, he is unimpressed and he casts a sleep spell on Belair, saying that he's being scammed, basically. As Belair sleeps, Orbrus pulls off his mask and we learn what is underneath.
Dry, cracked, chunks of flesh missing to see teeth, and it seems to be powdering by the second. Not completely, but just the exposure to air seems to be making it turn grayer and open up. The eye sockets are practically empty. It's just flaccid balloons of what used to be eyes. Any moisture that was in them long gone.
Is freaked out by this sight, unsurprisingly, and he examines the mask. He sees a glyph or something on the inside and is compelled to put it on. Sometime later, Belair wakes up feeling refreshed and healthy, much better than he was before. He sees a dead body on the floor and calmly begins to strip it of its clothes, putting them on, and then summons a magical glass razor which he uses to cut some of the body's hair away. Really hate that. And then goes on to summon a glass cleaver which he uses to cut up the body and feed to the fire, except for the head and the hands, which he keeps. I really hate that. I mean, I know it's Halloween, but I didn't expect us to go this dark. Like, holy hell. My notes for this section are just like, So what on earth was this scene about? Well, I want to jump ahead to later in the episode when we get an explanation about Belair's true nature, thanks to the questioning of Hal, Azune, and Murray.
I'm a part. I am a character. I am of the Panto. A series of masks created to perform a very, very specific play, and a play that was designed to murder a god. This mask could be worn by anyone. No. The mask can wear anyone. I can wear anyone.
I love poetry and verse, but can we speak in prose for a moment here?
This is me, unfortunately stuck to this. I need this, but I'm not in here. This is just what I need.
From this, we learn that Belair is not a person in the usual sense, but is rather a sentient object, a mask, and whichever body wears him, he takes it over, but his actual essence and personality, it's all in the mask. So the body that he was chopping up was not Orbrus's, but it was actually the old body that he was inhabiting, and now he's inhabiting or using Orbrus's body. This was a wild reveal, but it also feels very on brand for Taliesin, who you know just will not play a straightforward character. But he also said in the cooldown that he was inspired by Travis constantly picking up sentient weapons over the years, and it got him thinking about what it would be like to be one of those sentient weapons and how it would kind of be awful to be stuck in this object and not really able to live a life, I guess. But not only is he a sentient mask, he was actually created to destroy one of the gods, Rowwyn, the halfling trickster god, and he was actually one of several masks that were created for this purpose. We of course saw one of these masks in the coffin in episode 1, but Belair never saw it, and I don't actually think Taisha or Hal have told him yet that they saw it. In this scene, Belair explains that he woke up 2 days prior to Rowwyn's destruction, and he spent the intervening years being moved from body to body to sort of fight in various battles until one day he decided that he just didn't want to do that anymore, and he ran away, finding himself here in Dhalmakia, where he has sort of been in hiding ever since, but building a life for himself. So from a mechanics perspective, I'm curious to know who his warlock patron is, if he does have one in the traditional D&D sense. It could be that the halflings made a deal with an entity from the land of the dead to help take Rowwyn there, or since masks are inherently about tricking, maybe there's a world in which Rowwyn themselves is somehow Belair's patron, like from beyond the grave? I don't know. Something I've really appreciated about this campaign so far is that they are not being so secretive with their secrets. You know, we've had several major reveals about the characters in this overture already, which is kind of refreshing. I'm really enjoying it. You know, we've got the source of Wick's magic, Julian being responsible for Thjazi's death, Tyranny being given a body very recently, and of course, everything that happened with Occtis this week. I think that they've purposefully put stuff on screen that normally would be something in a backstory or off camera that we would be told about later. I love that they're using these introductory episodes as a show don't tell situation for these defining character moments, although it is not going to help with the scripted allegations, especially with regards to what happened with Occtis this week. But I'm jumping around again so we can visit that later. Over at the Palazzo Divinos, we learned that the assassin who killed Julian's father, General Raymond, was Primus Taconis himself, and as he stands over the general's body, he holds in his hand a black candle with a black wick with silver figures inside, a material component for a powerful necromantic ritual. Julian screams out in rage and grief and rushes to Primus, but can't get past the body of his father. Upstairs, Occtis is surrounded by ghouls who are magically enhanced. They're stronger than they should be, and they grab him and drag him onto a table. Occtis's brother Ethryn steps forward and with a curved knife begins to cut Occtis open, dropping the silence spell.
You should have welcomed the name alone as a gift, even though there has always been something wrong with you. The hand that holds the Stone of Night Song, he plunges into your core, and you can feel ice-cold fingers release the stone and begin to wrap around your heart from inside you.
Placing the Stone of Night Song in Occtis's chest, Ethryn pulls out his heart and leaves the room. Out in the garden, Pin, who was with Valus, falls into pieces. With Occtis gone, the magic that held him together is gone too. Seeing this, Taisha rushes inside and follows the smell of blood and the sounds of Lady Aranis screaming upstairs. Primus shadow steps into the center of the garden and, holding the burning candle, casts Circle of Death, a 6th level necromantic spell. Pretty nasty, and he pulls the restless spirits beyond the veil into this world. The guards and attendants of House Divinos are killed instantly, and both Julian and Taisha are severely injured. The Primus calls out that tonight House Divinos, Royce, and all their vassal houses end, stating that there is work to be done without their interference. Valus shoots a guiding bolt at Primus, and Julian rushes forward to attack him with his rapier and demi-gauntlet. The Primus turns from him, but Julian gets an opportunity attack.
As he starts to walk away, I say, "Don't you fucking dare!" I'm gonna go ahead and try and spear him from behind with the rapier.
Okay.
That's an actual 20.
Yeah!
Let's go! Let's go!
You lunge out with the rapier in this moment.
It's feral.
On a nat 20, you go for a move that should, by all rights, would kill any other man. You, boom, through the back, watch the sword erupt out of his front. Oblivion. You said oblivion. You threatened me with sending me home. Mist pools out of the wound as he steps forward.
With that nat 20, Brennan allows Matt to ask any question about Primus, and Matt asks if he can even be killed. While Julian's attack should have killed him, he is still just a man, and Brennan confirms that yes, he can be killed. Brennan then grants Julian a boon. If at any time he is attacking Primus when he is at half hit points or lower, he gets advantage on the attack roll. Meanwhile, upstairs, the ghouls begin dragging Lady Aranessa to the balcony, trying to throw her over it, but tapping into her natural sorcery, she casts Entangle to pin herself to the ground. Taisha sees Ethryn holding the bloody heart of Occtis, and Ethryn calls out to his father that he has it. Primus teleports up to him, leaving Valus and Julian surrounded by spirits of the restless dead, which Valus has faced many times before, although you would not know it from Ashley's dice rolls.
Come on, man. That's an 8. I'm so
It's
sorry.
even lower than last time.
Julian leaves Valus following the cries of Lady Aranessa upstairs and arrives just in time to see Tysha dropped to 0 hit points in her Wolven form. And there's been a big change in how this works in the 2024 rules of D&D, because in 2014 rules, if you were in wild shape and you were dropped to 0 hit points, you just reverted to your usual form with whatever hit points you had before you wild shaped. But now in 2024, you stay in your wild shape form until you are incapacitated or you die, and there's no talk of like reverting back to your regular self. So it's generally much more dangerous. Druids were always super duper tanky for this reason, because basically they could get like another stack of hit points on top of their own every time they're wild shaped. But now it's sort of much more in keeping with everybody else's hit points, I guess. So she's unconscious, but Tysha also is an orc and she has orcish fury. So she comes back up with 1 hit point, which Abria describes as the wolf dying, and then Tysha pulling herself out of its corpse. Ew, no thank you. This is why I could never watch Burrow's End, because I got one whiff of that map that she made and I was like, no, I'm out. Primus casts Plane Shift, teleporting himself and Ethrend and Occtis' heart to the realm of the dead, but before he does, he tells Tysha that there is a place where all lost things are kept eternal, and that he is going to scrub all traces of her traditions, the old path, from the realm of the beyond. Lady Aranessa calls out that the world cannot fall into further darkness, and out in the garden, nightingales fly from the trees. Valus sees them as fairies of the dead, and she watches them fly towards and scare off the spirits pressing from beyond the veil. Julian finally reaches Lady Aranessa, and with a swirl of golden fairy magic and butterfly wings, she casts haste on him, which, if you've ever played a martial character, know that it is such a gift. It's so fun. He whips into the room and starts laying into the ghouls, getting his first, how do you want to do this?
How do you want to do this?
Yeah!
Something good happens.
So as the
Finally
rapier
something else done.
pierces down into the body, kind of my weight coming onto it, I release the rapier, grab it with my gauntleted hand, and like with it facing downward, tear the rapier out and kind of carve through its chest, if I can.
Bones and viscera scatter across the floor. The first of the ghouls has fallen.
It was so cool seeing Sir Julian in action and watching Matt roleplay like all the different abilities that he has. We saw a couple come out, including weapon mastery. He has the sap and vex features, as well as, of course, like the rogue sneak attack and fighter's second wind and tactical mind. And I'm actually going to make a whole video speculating about the subclasses for everyone this week over on my Patreon. It's going to come out next week, so I can kind of tide you over in the break before the next episode. So if you're interested, you can check that out in the description. There's a link down there. And I'd like to say thank you so much to all of my patrons, and also welcome to new patrons: Emily Hastings, Second Worst, Sang Kim, Nova Knight, Hayden Fong, Sup Detley, Ashley Boyce, Hello Laura, Colleen Harris, Sarah Paish, Liz Colton, June Summers, Aurelium, Alexa B, K Briefs, Erin O'Neill, Ilyabek, and Doan Rosier. There were so many of you this week. Thank you. I appreciate all of you. And yeah, once again, you can sign up to support my channel and also get some bonus videos at patreon.com/Luboffin, or by using the link in the description. So while Sir Julian is dominating in this fight, Tysha is once again downed by the ghouls, and rolling a nat 1 on her death save, she finds herself moving into the realm of death, where she sees Occtis, his spirit moving away from her and lost. And she calls out to him.
I've made jokes to him and to my family about feeling very maternal over him, and there is some part of me that has the thought to give some strange bit of comfort in this place, on this path. But this feels so wrong. And everything in my path is about accepting the cycles of life and not fighting when your time has come. But it's not his time, I know that. So I just turn and yell, "Go back!" Not yet. Not yet.
Occtis, however, sees his father gripping his heart, and Primus orders him home. Occtis resists and feels his spirit being pulled in 2 different directions, so much so that he begins to rip in 2. Before she has a chance to do anything else, Lady Aranessa casts Healing Word on Tysha, bringing her back to the mortal realm. Occtis continues to be dragged by his father while trying to follow Tysha back, and he pushes his hands into himself, trying to stitch himself back together.
No, I'm not supposed to go there. Father, you... I don't belong to you. I belong here.
As he struggles, Occtis has a vision of a spectral white face, perhaps his grandfather, saying that there is something wrong with him and asking Primus what he has done. And then he feels the fluttering of bird wings inside himself as Pin pushes his head out of the rift in his spiritual body. And I'm not gonna lie, this section was kind of hard to recap because Brennan is really good at like talking in these kind of big mystical ideas, and it was all a bit like, woo. So I'm trying to boil it down to the nuts and bolts. So Occtis knows that he needs to do something, otherwise his spirit is going to be ripped in two. And with a 15 Arcana check, Brennan gives him one of three options. He can try and move the fluttering wings inside him to one side, he can try and pull Pin out, or he can try and reach for the place inside him that feels cold, where the stone is.
I'm gonna reach towards the thing that's very still. It's not supposed to be in there.
You reach in, and your hand wraps around a stone where your heart should be. You pull it out. That translucent face looks down at you from that table, somewhere not in death or life, and goes, "No! No!" In the forest, you come apart. Birds fly everywhere, nightingales. The last part of your soul that remains is a hand clutching a stone. That's the last we're going to see of you. Alex, I'll ask you to step away from the table.
I'm sorry, what?
I really want to know what might have happened if he chose one of the other options. We kind of know based on the end of the episode that he was going to come back, but like, I want to know what else could have happened if he pulled Pin out, for example. Taisha, seeing that Occtis is dead and beyond saving, picks up his body and uses Speak with Plants and Metals, an extra addition to the spell based on the Loy family's attunement with smithing and metal, and she calls out to ask where is safe. She hears a tree calling out from outside the estate, and she begins heading there with Lady Aranessa. They call to Valus and Julian to follow, but Julian, looking at his father's body, refuses. He tells Valus to go and protect the others, but she also refuses, saying she will stay to fight with him, but it won't make him feel better. Eventually he concedes, but before leaving he goes to his father's body and he takes his father's gauntlet. The two hurry out of the garden, leaving the House of Royce to fall to the dead. Oh, that was a really intense battle, and it raises so many questions. What was Ethrint and his father trying to do with Occtis? Was this kind of a opportunity attack in a way? Because they were obviously planning to attack House Royce, but they didn't necessarily know that Occtis was going to be there unless they were following him or something, which I don't think makes sense because they were looking for him. Last week, I posed that the Stone of Night Song could act as a sort of Pied Piper situation, calling the dead to it, but the fact that they left it there doesn't feel right. I did see one theory, and I'm so sorry, I can't remember where it was, so I don't know where to credit, sorry, but that I saw a theory that they wanted to bring the Stone of Night Song to the realm of the dead, and in order to do that, they needed to connect it to a dying soul. But yeah, I don't know, I'm a little stumped on this one, so I'm really keen to hear your theories in the comments, and yeah, to see what eventually comes out whenever we come back to this group. House Daconis are obviously working towards a larger plan, and I would be willing to bet that they were the ones who unleashed dead spirits on the land of Fairy, which led to the doors of Fairy being shut, which likely led to a diminishment of House Royce's power. That would be a surefire way to sort of start taking out your rival house. So, back over at Hal's house after the departure of the soldiers, Table, and Azane, it's just Hal and Murray left at his house. Hal shares with her that Thjazi told him to help her and hopes that she can shed some light on why. He gives her the letter that was intended for her, although it has Belaire's name on it, and the two theorize about that and decide that it may have been kind of a labeling system for Thjazi to keep the dirt he has on other people organized. As Murray reads the letter, Shadja arrives home, having been at rehearsal. She is filled with ideas for using the paints that were delivered by Belaire to paint murals depicting famous stories and figures, which Hal enthusiastically agrees to. And I saw a lot of you in the comments theorizing that those paints could have filament mixed into them. Don't know why or for what purpose, but that would definitely be a really interesting tie between the Halovars and this paint. After Shadja heads to her room, Murray shares what she read with Hal, saying that the letter was intended for her to read if Thjazi died or if he had to skip town. Thjazi says he has had a lot of success working with Belaire, but he wouldn't count him as a friend, saying that he belongs in a museum and if you could get that mask off his face, you'd have him well in hand. A very clever play on words there from Brennan, now that we know Belaire is the mask. Hal asks Murray how she was connected to Thjazi, and she says that Thjazi acquired things for her, heavily implying that they're illegal things and that sometimes she would help him out with things too. In this conversation, we learn that Murray is in fact a diviner wizard.
Murray kind of runs her tongue across her teeth, and she gets a little bit of a metallic taste in her mouth, a little bit like burning ozone. There's a little bit of a hum, like a high-pitched frequency that is almost entirely reserved for the ears of the youths before they start to lose that aspect of their hearing. There's a little bit of almost like a gravitational shift, like a well, because as Murray knows, time is not a supernatural concept. Time is something rooted in science, in physics, in astronomy. And she knows where some people might in the back of their head feel like the sign of deja vu means that it is the universe affirming that they are on the right path. That's bullshit. She knows she's tapping into something else, into the cosmic DNA, the math that connects everything, and knows, yes, we are on the right path, but it has nothing to do with your superstitious bullshit.
Diviner Wizards have a really cool class feature called Portent. At the end of each long rest, they roll 2 d20s and they record the numbers. They can then replace any d20 test roll and they have to use it before the day ends. This day, Murray rolled a nat 20, which is very lucky, especially as Brennan is the kind of DM who always gives a lot on a nat 20. Hal is determined to find out more, despite Murray's warnings that he could be getting mixed up in some dangerous stuff. He basically is like, well, I already am, and the two head off to find Belair. Meanwhile, at the Falcon's Rest, Azane watches the soldiers' party leave and he recites their names. Not because they are gone, but because he wants to remember them and he wonders if they will forget him. And speaking of remembering, make sure you remember to subscribe. I'm so sorry. That way you will never miss a breakdown, and it also really does help me out. I've had so many wonderful folks subscribe in the last few weeks, so thank you so much for the support. Really, really appreciate it. So Azane is clearly struggling with his past and moving on from it because, as Brennan says, he doesn't know the difference between moving on and forgetting, and he never wants to forget. We haven't really tapped into what's going on with Azane very much, but boy, he's obviously got some baggage. He ends up meeting with Murray and Hal, and they all head to the Arcanade to talk to Belair. It's getting late in the day, and Belair, although he is somewhat unsettled by the events earlier in the evening, is content that he has covered his tracks. What he really wants to do is find Thimble, because he doesn't know yet that she's actually left town. Murray, Hal, and Azane arrive, and Murray messages Belair, who is pretty annoyed by their arrival, but ultimately lets them in and even takes them down into the archives, a place that the general public aren't allowed to access. As he takes them down, Hal notices that he seems healthier, more vibrant, but also a little awkward on his feet. Internally, Belair comes to a decision and says that he needs them to trust him, and to gain that trust, he takes them into his secret archive below the archives, a vault leading to a massive hole filled with very strange artifacts and objects, including a whole giant's hand now turned to stone. Belair pours some very expensive wine, and Hal says that they need to talk about why Thjazi told him he needs to help Belair and Murray, despite also warning Murray about Belair. This is when Belair reveals the truth about himself and his nature, saying that about 1 week after he met Thjazi, Thimble arrived with a letter blackmailing him. Thjazi had found out the truth about who or what he is and told him that he had to work for him, stealing things from the museum and committing deeds that Belair seems very ashamed of. He says Thjazi ruined his life and his career, but not only that, he ruined the one true friendship Belair has had with Hal, and that seeing one of Hal's plays changed the way he saw life and helped him to feel truly alive.
He's poisoned the only friendship that ever mattered to me, and I will do anything to make this work, to make this better, because this is the most important thing I've ever known. This theater is so important. You're so important. Your children are so important.
Belair really wanted to find Thimble because despite Thjazi's disdain for him, she had been kind to him and had done her best to sort of ensure that the two of them didn't have to meet. So I guess he was hoping that she would be sympathetic to him now that Thjazi is gone. Now, it is worthwhile mentioning that Liam rolled a nat 1 inside check while Taliesin rolled a nat 20 deception or persuasion check. We actually don't know which. So this could all be a load of bullshit, but I don't know. It felt genuine to me, so I'm really hoping that he was being honest in this moment and it was a nat 20 persuasion, because it certainly was a persuasion check for me. Suddenly, a chime sounds from upstairs and Belair heads up to find a benefactor of the museum, Temade Wernst, with somebody called Lady Amiria Cormorey. Cormorey is, of course, one of the Sundered Houses. She has been selected by the Chamber of Lords Advisory to review the Pariah Blades, although she doesn't say why. Again, this feels all a part of the Sundered Houses kind of cracking down on arcane magics and things like that, wanting to have control over it, so it's definitely worrying. As they are talking, Termide notices that the lights of the Palazzo de Venus are out, a very odd sight, as normally the whole grounds would be lit up. So Belair very hurriedly excuses himself, saying that there is an emergency with an artifact, and he rushes down the stairs to get the group. They all rush to the Palazzo de Venus and disturbingly find nothing. No bodies, no blood, no signs of a fight, except for a pool of black wax, which Murray recognizes as a powerful component of a necromantic ritual. Azane, at Belair's encouragement, casts Mending on the wax, saying a word that he doesn't know the meaning of. It's one that's sort of been handed down, but Hal knows that the true meaning of it is remember. To mend something, the spell makes the object remember what it was. I feel like there's going to be a lot of themes around memory for Azane. The candle reforms itself and Hal hears the patter of fox feet with a nat 20 perception check. They follow the sound of the fox, arriving at the Loy family estate, which is a large single-story home built into the side of the hill. The grounds are filled with unique trees of fiery red and ironwood that don't appear anywhere else in the city. There, Hal, Murray, Azane, and Belair find Tysha, Lady Aranessa, Sir Julian, Valus, and of course, Occtis's dead body. Tysha breaks down in Hal's arms, who for a fleeting moment saw the body of their son, Alagar. So we finally got confirmation this week that Alagar is Hal and Tysha's son, and not Thyazi's like I speculated last week. So it's good to get some confirmation on that, even if we're not going to get a Jerry Springer episode out of it. Tysha tells them that she senses a strong necromantic energy coming from within Occtis's body, and that there is something in there. Murray and Belair work together, Murray summoning her mage hand and Belair manifesting a glass scalpel within it. She manipulates the scalpel, with Brennan ruling that this is going to be a DC 30 medicine check, and what better place for Marisha to use her nat 20 portent roll than this. She successfully manages to remove the stone, bypassing some terrible things that could have happened if they failed.
Several absolutely thunderous, potent, magical mistakes are not only prevented, but in this moment, mended. You've fixed things you weren't even aware had been broken. And Belair and Murray, as you look at each other, you realize you are very different people, but you've just done one of the most important magical acts that this city's ever seen, and this is where they made a sword that killed the gods.
As Murray levitates the stone over, locked in a magical gravity grid, the ground shakes, causing them all to gasp, including the body of Occtis.
Occtis!
Yes.
You wake up dead.
What happened?
Pin also comes back, jumping out of Occtis's innards, which, again, I cannot stress enough how gross all of this has been, and Occtis's body magically sews itself shut again. Occtis, coming back to himself, has visions of wings, carriages of filament, the Taconis house summoning armies of the undead, his family waging a war in the underworld, and an orc warrior of the Barrow Guard fending off the dead at Devalma Pass. This causes Liam and Abria some concern because it was revealed in the cooldown that Sir Julian had been training the Barrow Guard, and Tysha and Hal's son Alagar is actually a member of it, so this orcish warrior that Occtis saw could be him. So Occtis is alive, but he also isn't. He no longer has to breathe. He is in fact a hollow one, and Valus realizes that the stone has brought someone back from the dead, calling to mind her own dead god. Now, in case you don't have Beacon and you didn't watch the cooldown, this was a planned death. Alex wanted to play a hollow one from the beginning, but Brennan asked if he would be okay with this transition happening on screen. And I kind of was expecting something like this from the top of the episode, honestly, because while Brennan does not pull punches in a fight, and he has also said that in this particular campaign, he isn't necessarily like scaling scaling areas to the party's level. Like if they wander in somewhere that is really dangerous, it could be really bad. However, in other series that I've watched him in, Brennan will often quite clearly signpost that an area is really dangerous. Like he won't just let the party kind of walk in with no foreknowledge. And we didn't really have any clues that the Palazzo de Venus was going to be dangerous other than a mention of House Deconus potentially moving against them. But that also was in the very same episode, and they were already at the house, I think, when we learned that. I think if this encounter was supposed to end in any other option, Brennan absolutely would have made it a bit clearer that something super duper bad was going to go down. And to be clear, he did roll in front of the board, and he mentioned in the cooldown that there was always a chance Occtis could have got away, to which Alex agreed, that he wasn't just going to go along with it. He was absolutely going to struggle to get out of that situation, because that is exactly what Occtis would do. If he had got away, we could have seen this transformation to a Hollow One happen later in the series. Critical Role has always been plagued by speculations of scripting, and this is certainly not going to help their case. But I think what folks have to remember is that setting up a scene that your player wants to roleplay in is actually a really good and fun thing to do. It's of course always fun to be surprised by something that your DM pulls out, and I would say that majority of D&D gameplay is like that, but I also think a good DM will check in with their players and say, hey, is there anything that you want your character to go through or experience, and then work to incorporate that into the game. Like, that's not scripting, that's just collaborating. Plus, these 4 episodes, which have been called The Overture, were about setting up the world and introducing us to these characters and their main goals and motivations. And I do think that after this week, once they are in the split tables, we're going to see more like surprise moments rather than these ones, like, with Wick and Occtis, where the player was clearly expecting that to happen. D&D is ultimately a collaborative story, especially in the case of Critical Role, where it's a lot about the interpersonal connections between the characters. And I think it's good to hand over some of that authorship of the story to players. I actually talked about this in my bonus video on Patreon, I think it was last week, comparing it to a game I'm hoping to run soon, which is called Good Society. It's extremely different to D&D, but anyway, it's an extremely collaborative sort of game, and it made me think about the way I approach that in D&D as well. Anyway, so Critical Role have also moved in that direction quite heavily too, with the mechanics and sort of the focus of Daggerheart, which does have a very strong component of handing things to the players to describe and decide. But yeah, have you ever played in a game where you've told the DM a specific thing or scene that you wanted to happen to your character, or are you a DM that has provided that for a player? I would love to hear about it in the comments, because I do think it's probably more common than people think. So the episode ends with everyone happy to see Occtis back, except for Sir Julian, who of course just saw his father killed by Occtis's family, so he does not trust him at all and thinks that even if he wasn't privy to or in on the attack, that maybe he is being used as bait.
Are you still the bait in our midst? Is this miracle a way to gain more trust so we follow you even further into whatever their great plan is to guide us into what Meat Shredder will make more of whatever it is that fucking killed everything that matters to me? So you put your hand and you defend him. You call him a miracle. You laugh. You sit there and you are so prideful with what you do here.
Lady Aranessa intervenes, telling them that they need to fight, but not here, and asks Occtis to tell them exactly what he saw, because the fate of the city may depend on it. However, we won't see the conclusion of this moment for a while, because after the Dispatch one-shot next week, we are going to be joining Thimble, Tail, Cadigan, Wick, and Tyranny on the road to Gormalay for the Soldiers' Table adventure. It's going to be interesting trying to keep track of everyone's stories as we switch between the different tables, but that is what I am here for. I think whenever there's a table switch, I might do a sort of previously on the soldiers table or whatever, just to help get us all remembering what happened the last time we saw these characters. We've had a lot of themes of death so far cropping up in the overture. We've got the Stone of Night song, which was made to shepherd dead spirits to the afterlife, the coffin to a halfling celestial with a mask inside, which was created to kill a god, a paladin to a dead god who has not let go yet, a demon plot to snip away shadows, which I think are souls, and of course we started off with the very impactful death of Thiazi Fang. Thiazi Fang. Saying that name over several times, really, I find that a tongue twister. So yes, please let me know all of your thoughts and theories about this episode in the comments, and until next time, have a great Halloween if you celebrate, and I'll see you soon. Bye!
When are we gonna make milk?